famine had occurred as a result of the diversion of labor away from farm work into all kinds of other endeavors. And he had decided that he must tell Mao and advise him what was going on in the countryside. And he came to Lushan prepared to deliver a report to Mao explaining what the situation was.
This is the letter Peng sent Mao during the Lushan conference. Choosing his words with great care, Peng raised the question of a change in policy regarding the Great Leap Forward and the People's Communes. The fact that he praised Mao's genius and attributed blame to stupid subordinates suggests that Peng had no intention of criticizing Mao himself. Peng also stated clearly that his letter was a private, personal one and not for publication. However, at the conference, Mao made the letter public and denounced Peng as a plotter intending to take over the party as head of what Mao called the military club.
Mao Zedong regarded the Lushan meeting as a fight for his very existence, a fight for life, a fight for the survival of his leadership of the Communist Party. He felt that if he lost here, it would only be the first step downward, and therefore he must destroy his critics. Leading critic, of course, was Peng Dehuai, and if he had to go because Mao's leadership was more important so far as he was concerned. He launched a campaign to drive him out of the party, not only to drive him out of the party, but to wreck his reputation and end his association with all the old comrades. It was a significant act. It was the act which really was the first step that Mao took on the road to total dictatorship. He charged that Peng had been opposed to Mao's policy, that he was deliberately trying to find support and get support among the leaders of the party in a military club which would overthrow Mao's power and replace his policies. It was at that moment that Zhu De, the great marshal of the Chinese Republic, said, "And to think that once we all ate out of a common rice bowl." It was a step that led directly and inevitably to the terrors of the Cultural Revolution and to the deaths of many of Mao's closest associates, the men who had worked with him to bring about the Chinese Revolution.
After the Lushan conference, Peng was dismissed from his post. Later, he was persecuted once again during the Cultural Revolution and died in jail in 1974. Succeeding Peng Dehuai as Minister of Defense was Marshal Lin Biao, who would later become Mao Zedong's #2 man.
It was the end of debate or discussion or the exchange of ideas. As one survivor recalled, after that, no one spoke up to Mao. We knew what the penalty was. After that, China became one vast gray desert. There was only one voice. It was the voice of Mao. Mao was very pleased when Nikita Khrushchev came to the leadership in the Soviet Union. It was a welcome relief from Stalin. Khrushchev made a number of gestures toward bettering relations with China. He gave China a big aid program, and he was willing to agree to the Chinese return of the territories that Stalin had still held on to. However, as time went on, Mao began to be nervous. Khrushchev's policy was not, he didn't think it was consistent. He was very much upset when Khrushchev made his famous secret speech against Stalin. He felt also that Khrushchev was moving too far and too fast in an effort at rapprochement with the West, and specifically with the United States. Mao didn't think that was right. He believed that the power of the Soviet Union and China together, by this time, outweighed that of the West. And he wanted a strong, aggressive international policy. Khrushchev didn't buy that at all, and their relations began to deteriorate. These contrasting attitudes set the stage for a violent, behind-the-scenes argument at the 1957 Moscow Conference. In this debate, Deng Xiaoping emerged as the Chinese champion, testing the field against Mikhail Suslov, the Soviet spokesman on ideological matters. It was a David and Goliath contest. Deng, at 5 feet, was a Chinese David. Suslov, an angular 6 feet 2, was the Soviet Goliath. Deng won out, carrying the field against his scholarly opponent. It was a triumph which Khrushchev later was to acknowledge. "Your little guy," said Khrushchev to Mao, "bested our big guy." And Mao replied, "Never underestimate our little fellow." That little fellow wiped out 1 million men of Chiang Kai-shek's best army.
Deng Xiaoping, coming home triumphantly after winning the debates with Mikhail Suslov. The importance of the debates for China can be recognized by the fact that all the top leaders enthusiastically welcomed Deng at the airport. Most indicative of the tension between China and the Soviet Union was what happened with the Changjiang Bridge being built in Nanjing. In 1960, immediately after construction began, the Soviet Union stopped providing China with industrial aid programs. As the Soviet engineers were withdrawn from China with all the blueprints for the bridge, the Chinese had to complete construction themselves. After 8 years, when it was finally completed, the bridge was hailed as a symbol of self-reliance. The success of China's first atomic bomb experiment. It took place the day after the news of Khrushchev's fall had astonished the world. In 1959, when the serious consequences of the breakdown of the Great Leap Forward became apparent, Mao Zedong relinquished his position as head of state. He was succeeded as president by Liu Shaoqi. Liu Shaoqi was a man with business acumen and administrative ability, and for these talents he was valued highly, though later loudly censured by Mao.
Liu Shaoqi, of all the chief lieutenants,